Well, that is one of the big questions, Jiangxi. The countries granted U.S. waivers on Iran include Iran's biggest oil customers. Starting next month, Washington wants them to use other oil suppliers, namely its U.S. ally, Saudi Arabia. Iran called the U.S. sanctions illegal and worthless. Let's talk more about the implications with Suzanne Maloney. She's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute, where her research focuses on Iran and Persian Gulf energy. Suzanne, welcome to our program. All these moves by the Trump administration, from withdrawing from the JCPOA, the renewed sanctions, and now this latest move with suspending waivers on sanctions on Iran's oil imports, all part of what the administration calls the maximum pressure campaign on Iran. What is the end game here?
Thanks very much, Asieh. I think the big question is precisely what is the end game. The Trump administration has said that the president wants a bigger, better deal, that he thinks that he can negotiate a more favorable agreement than the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which was concluded under the Obama administration with the support of other major powers in Europe, Russia, and China. However, much of the rhetoric that this administration articulates, and certainly this very devastating economic warfare campaign that is being waged against Iran at this moment, has given many people the impression, certainly many of the Iranians the impression, that in fact the real end goal here is regime change, or at least the collapse of the Islamic Republic. And what follows, of course, is very much uncertain.
China and Turkey have already denounced this decision, suggesting they're not going to be bullied. I mean, they said that more diplomatically. Will they continue to buy oil from Iran? And what happens if Japan and South Korea release a similar statement, basically saying, butt out of our business?
Well, I think there's a lot of resentment from much of the international community over the application of these sanctions to third countries. However, what we've seen to date is, in fact, many countries and companies have sought to comply with the measures simply because they don't want to face the severe economic penalties, including lack of access to U.S. markets or to the U.S. dollar, that might follow from any designation by the U.S. Treasury Department. The real question here, the real wild card, I think, is China. China is the largest destination for Iranian crude imports. And beyond its preference for diversity of supply as a means of ensuring its own energy security, I think there is a deep disinclination to submitting to U.S. demands on an issue where Chinese interests are, in fact, quite different from what the Trump administration has articulated as American interests.
And is it your sense, Suzanne, that come May 3rd, China and the rest of these countries are going to automatically be subject to these U.S. sanctions?
Yes, I think the Treasury Department will make good on the promises of the Trump administration to pursue any purchasers of Iranian oil and target those countries and companies for economic penalties. So I think the threat is real. As I said, my instinct at this stage is that we've already seen significant reductions around the world. The Japanese and South Koreans have already demonstrated that they can effectively go to zero. The Indians are in a more difficult position for a variety of reasons, including the loss of Venezuelan imports to India. But the real question is going to be China, and I think there we're going to see reductions, but it's almost inconceivable to imagine that the Chinese will zero out their imports from Iran.
And very quickly, Suzanne, do sanctions, in your opinion, work? I mean, they certainly cause a lot of economic pain in Iran for Iranians, but in terms of what the administration calls wanting to put an end to Iran's destabilizing and malign activities in the region?
I think it's unlikely that we're going to see a wholesale capitulation by the Iranian regime on the very wide-ranging set of demands that the Trump administration has put forward. My real concern is that the Iranians are going to look to make good on their own promise that if they can't export their oil, that none of their neighbors will be able to do so either.
Suzanne Maloney, thank you so much.